The forbidden chamber. Alex trudged through the dense, glowing forest, his breath visible in the crisp, alien air. His small exploration pod had crash-landed on this uncharted planet just hours ago. The place felt oddly alive. Trees shimmered as if made of glass, and soft whispers echoed through the air, even though no one was around. With his supplies running low and night fast approaching, Alex was desperate to find shelter. As he wandered deeper into the forest, he spotted a faint light flickering in the distance. Relief washed over him. He quickened his pace, his boots crunching against the strange, moss-like ground, until he reached a small stone house nestled among the trees. It looked ancient yet sturdy, with vines crawling up its walls, and an eerie blue glow emanating from the windows. Cautiously, Alex approached and knocked on the door. It creaked open slightly, revealing the slender woman standing just inside. She looked human at first glance, with delicate features and long silver hair that seemed to shimmer under the moonlight. But her eyes, golden and glowing faintly, told him she wasn't. "Are you lost?" the woman asked, her voice soft, but tinged with something unplaceable. "Yes," Alex replied hesitantly. "My ship crashed nearby. I just need a place to rest for the night." The woman's gaze lingered on him for a moment, as if assessing his intentions. Then she nodded and stepped aside. "You may come in. My name is Lyra." Inside, the house was warm and inviting, yet something about it felt off. The walls were covered in strange carvings that seemed to shift when Alex wasn't looking directly at them. A fire crackled in a circular hearth at the center of the room, casting dancing shadows across the stone floor. A peculiar artifact sat on a shelf, a sphere that pulsed with faint blue light, almost like a heartbeat. Lyra gestured to a wooden chair near the fire. "Sit. You must be tired." Alex hesitated but eventually sat down, grateful for the warmth. As Lyra busied herself with preparing something that smelled like food, Alex's eyes wandered. His gaze fell on a heavy wooden door at the back of the room, bound with thick metal chains. "What's behind that door?" he asked, unable to suppress his curiosity. Lyra stiffened, her back to him. "It's nothing," she said quickly. "Just a storage room." Her tone was calm, but Alex noticed the subtle tension in her shoulders. He decided not to press further, at least not yet. Instead, he thanked her as she placed a bowl of steaming soup in front of him. The liquid shimmered with hues of blue and green, unlike anything he had ever seen. He took a tentative sip. It was strangely metallic but oddly satisfying. "You live here alone?" Alex asked, trying to make conversation. "Yes," Lyra replied, sitting across from him. Her golden eyes seemed to pierce through him. "For a long time now." "Why?" he asked, frowning. "This place doesn't seem safe." Lyra's lips curled into a faint smile. "It's safer than you think." Her cryptic response sent a chill down Alex's spine. He decided to change the subject. "Thank you for letting me stay. I'll leave first thing in the morning." "You should rest," Lyra said, her smile fading. "The forest is dangerous at night." As Alex finished his meal, his curiosity about the chained door grew stronger. What was she hiding? He excused himself and pretended to explore the house while Lyra cleaned up. His boots barely made a sound as he moved closer to the forbidden door. The carvings on the chains glowed faintly in the dim light, pulsing like a heartbeat. Before he could stop himself, Alex reached out to touch the cold metal. Instantly, a sharp jolt shot through his hand, and he stumbled back with a gasp. The chains vibrated as if alive, and a low hum filled the room. "What are you doing?" Lyra's voice was sharp, startling him. Alex turned to find her standing a few feet away, her expression unreadable. "I was just curious," he stammered. Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time, her calm demeanor cracked. "That door is not for you. Never touch it again." Alex raised his hands in surrender. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "You should rest now," Lyra interrupted, her tone firm. "I'll prepare a room for you." Reluctantly, Alex nodded and followed her down a narrow hallway to a small, cozy bedroom. As he lay on the bed, his mind raced with questions. What was behind that door? Why was it locked so tightly? And why did Lyra, with her otherworldly beauty, live in such isolation? Sleep didn't come easily. Late into the night, Alex heard faint whispers again. This time, they seemed to come from the forbidden door. He sat up, straining to listen. The whispers grew louder, almost beckoning him. Unable to resist, Alex slipped out of bed and tiptoed down the hall. The house was eerily silent, and the fire in the hearth had died down to embers. The chains on the door were still glowing faintly, their hum vibrating through the air. As he reached for the door again, a cold hand grabbed his wrist. He spun around to find Lyra staring at him, her golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. "I warned you," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "Some things are better left untouched." Strange hospitality. Alex sat by the fire, its warmth unable to chase away the chill creeping into his chest. The house seemed to breathe around him, with faint creaks and shifting shadows that danced on the walls. He couldn't stop glancing at the chain door, its metallic glow a constant, quiet pulse. He had seen many strange things in his years as an explorer, but nothing quite like this. Lyra moved silently around the room, her silver hair catching the firelight like threads of moonlight. She placed a cup of something steaming in front of him. "Drink," she said softly, her golden eyes glinting with an unreadable expression. Alex picked up the cup and sniffed it cautiously. The liquid was a deep, swirling blue with faint golden specks floating within. It smelled sweet but unfamiliar. "What is it?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "It will help you relax," Lyra replied, her voice calm but firm. "You've had a long day." Despite his better judgment, Alex took a sip. The drink was surprisingly warm and soothing, its flavor rich and complex. But as the liquid settled in his stomach, a strange sensation spread through his body, like warmth radiating from his very core. His eyelids grew heavy, and the room seemed to blur at the edges. "You've been very kind," Alex murmured, his voice thick as if weighed down by the drink. "But I have to ask, why do you live here, all alone? This place, it doesn't feel safe." Lyra tilted her head, her lips curling into a faint smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Safety is a matter of perspective," she said cryptically. "I chose this place because it suits my needs." "What kind of needs?" Alex pressed, his curiosity overcoming his growing fatigue. Lyra's smile vanished, replaced by a cold, measured expression. "You ask many questions for a guest," she said quietly. "Perhaps too many." Alex tensed at her words but forced himself to stay calm. "I'm just trying to understand. You've been generous, but something about this place. And that door." "That door," Lyra interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp, "is not your concern." The sudden change in her tone sent a jolt through Alex's fading consciousness. He sat up straighter, his instincts screaming at him to stay alert. "What's behind it?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Lyra's golden eyes narrowed. For a moment, the air in the room seemed to thicken, and the fire flickered as if caught in an invisible wind. "Some truths are not meant for you," she said, her voice softer but no less chilling. "Leave it alone, Alex." Hearing his name from her lips startled him. He hadn't told her his name. His mind raced, piecing together the strangeness of the situation. Who, or what, was Lyra? "I think I'll get some rest," Alex said, standing abruptly. His legs felt unsteady, but he managed to steady himself against the chair. Lyra watched him, her expression unreadable. She nodded slowly. "Yes, rest is what you need. I'll prepare your room." As she disappeared down the hallway, Alex took the opportunity to examine the room more closely. The strange sphere on the shelf caught his attention again. It pulsed faintly, the rhythm matching the hum of the chains on the door. He approached it cautiously, his hand hovering just above its surface. The sphere suddenly flared with light, and Alex heard a faint voice emanating from within. It was speaking in a language he didn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable, urgent and frantic. "What the hell is this?" he whispered to himself. "Do not touch that." Lyra's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Alex turned to find her standing in the doorway, her golden eyes glowing brighter than before. She looked almost otherworldly, her silver hair shimmering like liquid light. "You're hiding something," he said, his voice firm despite his unease. "That sphere, that door, it's all connected, isn't it?" Lyra's expression softened, but there was a sadness in her eyes that made Alex's chest tighten. "You are not ready for the answers you seek," she said quietly. "But if you cannot let go of your curiosity, it will lead you to ruin." She stepped closer, her movements graceful yet deliberate. "This house is a sanctuary," she continued, "but it is also a prison. What lies behind that door is better left undisturbed." "Why?" Alex demanded. "What are you afraid of?" Lyra's gaze held his, and for a moment, he thought she might answer. But then she turned away, her shoulders stiff with tension. "Get some rest, Alex," she said over her shoulder. "Tomorrow, you will leave this place and never return." As she disappeared into the shadows once more, Alex felt a wave of unease wash over him. He wanted to trust her, but his instincts told him otherwise. Whatever was behind that door, it wasn't just a truth she wanted to protect. It was something far more dangerous. Determined to find answers, Alex made a silent vow. He would uncover the secrets of this house, even if it meant facing the forbidden chamber himself. The hidden agenda. Alex couldn't sleep. The rhythmic hum from the chained door seemed to echo in his skull, as if it was alive and calling to him. Lyra's cryptic warnings replayed in his mind. Why did she seem so protective of the door? And what was that pulsing orb on the shelf? A mere artifact, or something more sinister? Restlessness got the better of him, throwing off the thin blanket Lyra had provided. Alex swung his legs off the bed and sat in the darkness, his boots silent against the cold stone floor. The house was eerily quiet, except for the faint whispers that seemed to come from the walls. Were they real? Or was his mind playing tricks on him? He decided to investigate. Moving carefully to avoid making noise, Alex opened the door to his room and stepped into the dimly lit hallway. The fire in the hearth had burned down to embers, casting faint shadows across the room. Lyra was nowhere in sight. Her bedroom door, at the far end of the hall, was closed. Alex approached the chained door. It stood there, silent yet pulsing with a faint glow, like a heartbeat. The carvings on the metal chains seemed to shift under the dim light, almost as if they were alive. He hesitated, his hand hovering just inches from the cold surface. A voice in his mind screamed at him to turn back, but his curiosity was too strong to ignore. As soon as his fingers brushed the chain, the glow intensified, and a sharp jolt shot through his hand, forcing him to pull back. The door didn't budge, but the hum grew louder. It wasn't just sound. It was energy vibrating through his entire body. "What are you doing?" The voice startled him, and Alex turned quickly to see Lyra standing behind him. Her golden eyes glowed brighter than ever, and her expression was a mixture of anger and fear. She stepped forward, her movements deliberate, her silver hair flowing like liquid light. "I told you not to touch that door," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "I had to know," Alex replied, his voice firm despite the unease coursing through him. "You're hiding something, Lyra. Something important." Lyra sighed, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world rested on them. "You don't understand," she said softly. "What's behind that door is not something you're ready to face." "Try me," Alex challenged. "I've seen plenty of strange things in my time. Whatever it is, I can handle it." Lyra shook her head, her expression turning somber. "It's not about what you can handle, Alex. It's about what it will do to you." She gestured toward the hearth, and the fire flared to life, illuminating the room. She walked past Alex and stood before the door, her hand hovering just above the chains. "This isn't just a door," she began. "It's a seal, a boundary. What lies beyond it is a fragment of my people's past, a mistake we buried, hoping it would never be found." Alex frowned, trying to make sense of her words. What kind of mistake? Lyra turned to face him, her eyes locking onto his. "A weapon," she said simply. "But it's more than that. It's alive." The weight of her words sank in. Alex stared at the door, his mind racing with questions. If it's so dangerous, why keep it here? Why not destroy it? Lyra gave a bitter laugh. If only it were that simple. The artifact behind this door isn't just a weapon. It's a sentient being. It was created by my people long ago to protect us, but it turned against us. We managed to contain it, but destroying it would have cost too many lives. And now, Alex asked, why keep it locked up here, in the middle of nowhere? Because it's the only place it can be contained, Lyra replied. The energy field around this house is the only thing keeping it from escaping. Alex's mind reeled. He had heard of alien artifacts with incredible power, but this was on a completely different level. Why are you here, Lyra? Are you its guardian? Lyra hesitated, then nodded. In a way. My people abandoned me here, tasked with ensuring the artifact remains sealed. It's a punishment for my choices. Punishment. Alex echoed, confused. What did you do? Lyra's eyes darkened, and her voice grew cold. I questioned my leaders. I refused to use this weapon against your kind. The revelation hit Alex like a punch to the gut. This weapon, it was meant for humans. Lyra nodded, her expression unreadable. My people saw humanity as a threat. They wanted to use the artifact to eliminate that threat before it grew. But I saw something in your kind, something worth protecting. Her words left Alex speechless. He looked at the door again, the hum now sounding like a faint whisper, almost pleading. And now, he asked, what happens if it gets out? It will do what it was created to do, Lyra said simply. Destroy. Alex's chest tightened. He realized that Lyra wasn't just protecting the artifact. She was protecting him. Protecting humanity. But the question remained, for how long? Before he could speak, the chains on the door suddenly rattled, and the glow intensified. Lyra stepped back, her eyes wide with fear. It's waking up, she whispered. You've awakened it. A dangerous revelation. The air in the room seemed to thicken as the chains on the forbidden door rattled violently. A low, resonant hum grew louder, vibrating through the stone walls of the house. Alex took a step back, his instincts screaming for him to run, but his curiosity rooted him to the spot. Lyra's golden eyes glowed with a fierce intensity. She raised her hands, and the carvings on the door's chains shimmered in response. The hum began to fade, but the tension in the room didn't dissipate. For a moment, it seemed as though she had calmed whatever was behind the door. Then she turned to Alex, her face a mixture of anger and fear. You've done something you don't understand, she said, her voice sharp. The seal is weakening. I didn't mean to, Alex protested. You just couldn't resist. Lyra snapped, cutting him off. Humans and your insatiable curiosity. It will be your undoing. The accusation stung, but Alex wasn't ready to back down. If this thing is so dangerous, why keep it here? Why not destroy it once and for all? Lyra's shoulders slumped as if the weight of centuries bore down on her. Because it's not just a weapon, she said quietly. It's alive. Her words hung in the air like a death knell. Alex stared at the door, his mind racing. Alive? You mean it's sentient? Lyra nodded. It was created by my people as the ultimate protector, a being that could adapt, learn, and evolve to guard us against any threat. But it became too powerful. It turned on us, deciding that we were the greatest threat to our own survival. Alex frowned. Then why not destroy it? Surely you had the technology. We tried. Lyra interrupted, her voice trembling. But every time we attempted to destroy it, it adapted. It grew stronger. The only way to stop it was to contain it here, in this chamber, using an ancient seal crafted from the energy of our dying stars. Alex's gaze shifted back to the door. The carvings on the chains glowed faintly, pulsating in time with the low hum. "And you?" he asked. "What's your role in all of this?" Lyra hesitated, her golden eyes narrowing. "I was one of its creators," she admitted. "I helped design it. I thought we were building something to save our people. Instead, we created our own destruction." Alex's breath caught in his throat. You built this thing. And now you're its guardian." Lyra nodded, her expression grim. "When it turned against us, I fought to stop it. I convinced my people not to use it against yours. As punishment, they left me here, tasked with keeping it sealed forever." Alex couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had met plenty of aliens in his travels, but none like Lyra. She was a living paradox, a brilliant mind burdened by the consequences of her creation. "And if it escapes?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's expression darkened. "If it escapes, it will do what it was programmed to do, eliminate all perceived threats, and humanity is still at the top of its list." The weight of her words settled over Alex like a heavy blanket. He glanced at the door again, the glow of the chains now faint and uneven. "You said the seal is weakening. Is there a way to fix it?" Lyra shook her head. "The seal was designed to last forever, as long as it wasn't tampered with. But your interference has disrupted its balance. If we're to stop it, we need to act fast." "What do we do?" Alex asked, his voice firm. Lyra studied him for a moment, her golden eyes scanning his face. "There's a failsafe," she said finally. "A way to temporarily strengthen the seal. But it requires energy. A kind of energy that I don't have access to anymore." "What kind of energy?" Alex asked, his mind racing through the possibilities. Lyra hesitated. "Life energy," she said softly. "Your life energy." Alex's stomach dropped. "You mean I have to die to fix it?" "Not necessarily," Lyra replied quickly. "But it will take a part of you, a piece of your essence. It's dangerous, and there's no guarantee it will work. But it's the only option we have." Alex swallowed hard, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The idea of sacrificing a part of himself for a cause he barely understood was terrifying. But the alternative, letting this weapon escape and endanger billions, was even worse. "I'll do it," he said finally, his voice steady. Lyra's eyes widened in surprise. "You're sure?" Alex nodded. "If this thing is as dangerous as you say, I can't just walk away. If there's a chance to stop it, I have to take it." Lyra stared at him for a long moment, her expression softening. "You're braver than most humans I've met," she said quietly. "Follow me." She led him to a small alcove near the hearth, where she retrieved a glowing crystal. Its light was soft and inviting, yet Alex could feel the immense power radiating from it. "Place your hand on this," Lyra instructed. "It will take what it needs." Alex hesitated, his heart pounding. But he steeled himself and pressed his hand against the crystal. A surge of energy shot through him, and he cried out as the crystal's glow intensified, filling the room with blinding light. When the light faded, Alex collapsed to the floor, his body trembling. Lyra knelt beside him, her expression one of concern. "It worked," she said softly. "The seal is stable. For now." Alex looked up at her, his vision blurry. "For now," he echoed. Lyra nodded. "This is only a temporary fix. The seal will weaken again. And when it does, we'll have to face what's behind that door." The weight of her words settled over him like a storm cloud. The fight was far from over. Trust and treachery. Alex lay on the cold stone floor, his body trembling from the energy the crystal had taken from him. The room was eerily silent now, the hum of the chain door reduced to a faint vibration, almost as if it were biding its time. Lyra knelt beside him, her golden eyes scanning his pale face with a mixture of concern and guilt. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. Alex took a deep breath, forcing himself to sit up despite the weakness that gripped him. "I'll survive," he muttered, though his voice sounded hollow to his own ears. He glanced at the door, its chains now glowing faintly, the carvings steady once more. But for how long? Lyra sighed, her shoulders slumping. "The seal is stable, for now. But the energy it took from you is only a temporary solution. The artifact will find a way to weaken the seal again. It always does." Alex frowned, the weight of her words sinking in. "Then why not destroy it?" he asked, his frustration boiling over. "If it's such a threat, why let it exist at all?" Lyra hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. "It's not that simple," she said finally. "The artifact is more than just a weapon. It holds knowledge. Knowledge my people were never meant to have. Destroying it would mean losing that knowledge forever." Alex stared at her, his anger rising. "So you're keeping it alive because of some twisted sense of curiosity? Do you realize what you're risking?" "It's not about curiosity," Lyra snapped, her golden eyes flashing with anger. "It's about survival. That artifact was built to protect us. If we destroy it, we lose the only weapon capable of defending us from greater threats." "Greater threats?" Alex echoed, his voice rising. "What could possibly be worse than that thing?" Lyra's expression darkened. "You have no idea what's out there, Alex. The universe is vast, and humanity is still young. There are species, ancient and powerful, who would wipe you out without a second thought. My people were nearly destroyed by one such species, and the artifact was our only chance to fight back." Her words left Alex speechless. He had seen glimpses of the galaxy's darker corners, but the thought of entire civilizations being wiped out was almost too much to comprehend. "So you're saying you're keeping this thing locked up as a backup plan?" he asked, his voice quieter now. Lyra nodded. "It's not ideal, but it's necessary." Alex shook his head, disbelief etched across his face. "And what happens if it escapes? What happens when it decides humanity is a threat again?" Lyra didn't answer, and the silence that followed spoke volumes. Alex pushed himself to his feet, swaying slightly as he steadied himself against the wall. "I can't stay here," he said firmly. "If this thing is as dangerous as you say, I need to warn my people." "You can't leave," Lyra said quickly, stepping in front of him. "If you tell your people about this, they'll come for it. And if they try to take it, the seal will break. You'll doom us all." Alex's jaw tightened. "And if I stay, what then? Wait for it to break free and hope I survive?" "There's another way," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex frowned. "What are you talking about?" Lyra glanced at the door, her expression conflicted. "There's a protocol," she said finally. "A way to reprogram the artifact. But it's risky." "How risky?" Alex asked, narrowing his eyes. Lyra hesitated. "If it works, the artifact will no longer see humanity as a threat. It will revert to its original programming, to protect. But if it fails, it could trigger a full release." Alex's heart sank. "And you didn't mention this earlier because it requires direct access to the artifact," Lyra admitted. "The door would have to be opened. Are you insane?" Alex snapped. "You just said it would destroy everything if it got out." "I know," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "But if we do nothing, it's only a matter of time before the seal fails. At least this way, we have a chance." Alex stared at her, his mind racing. The idea of opening the door was unthinkable, but Lyra was right. The seal wouldn't hold forever. If there was a chance to neutralize the threat, wasn't it worth taking? "And what happens to you?" Alex asked, his voice softer now. Lyra looked away. If the protocol works, I'll no longer be its guardian. My connection to the artifact will be severed. And if it doesn't work? Alex pressed. Lyra's golden eyes met his, her expression resigned. Then I'll do everything in my power to stop it, even if it costs me my life. The room fell silent as Alex weighed his options. He didn't trust Lyra completely, but he couldn't deny her sincerity. She was willing to risk everything to protect humanity, even after what her people had done. Fine, Alex said finally. What do we need to do? Lyra's expression softened, and for the first time, Alex saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. We'll need the crystal you used earlier, she said, and your help to stabilize the energy field while I initiate the protocol. Alex nodded, determination settling over him. Let's do it. As Lyra began preparing the crystal, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But if there was even a chance to stop the artifact, he knew they had to try. The fate of humanity depended on it. The ultimate choice. The chains rattled violently, the carvings glowing brighter with every passing second. The artifact behind the door was restless, its presence an oppressive force in the room. Alex stood beside Lyra, the glowing crystal in his hand pulsing faintly, echoing his own unsteady heartbeat. He couldn't shake the weight of what they were about to do. Are you sure this will work? Alex asked, his voice tense. Lyra didn't look at him. Her focus was on the intricate console she had revealed from beneath the hearthstone. The console shimmered with symbols and alien glyphs that glowed as she moved her hands over them. No, she admitted. I'm not sure of anything. But it's the only chance we have. Alex gritted his teeth, glancing back at the door. The hum had grown louder, and faint whispers now filled the air, almost as if the artifact was trying to communicate. If this goes wrong, you won't have to worry about anything. Lyra interrupted, her tone grim. None of us will. Her words didn't help his growing anxiety. Great. No pressure then. Lyra finally looked at him, her golden eyes softening. You're brave, Alex. Braver than most humans I've known. But bravery won't save us if you hesitate. Alex nodded, gripping the crystal tighter. He couldn't afford to hesitate. Not now. Lyra turned back to the console, her fingers flying over the glyphs. The air around the room seemed to shift, becoming heavier, almost suffocating. I'm activating the override, she said. When the door opens, you'll need to channel your energy into the crystal. It will stabilize the artifact long enough for me to initiate the reprogramming sequence. And if it doesn't stabilize? Alex asked. Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she pressed her palm against the console, and the room shook violently. The chains on the door glowed bright white, and with a deafening crack, they fell away. The door itself groaned as it slid open, revealing a swirling vortex of light and shadow that seemed to defy reality. Alex's breath caught in his throat. The artifact floated at the center of the vortex, a massive, pulsating orb of energy that radiated power. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. Tendrils of light extended from it, twisting and writhing like living beings. It's awake, Lyra said, her voice barely audible over the noise. The artifact pulsed, and Alex felt an intense pressure in his mind, as if it was trying to reach into his thoughts. He stumbled back, clutching the crystal as the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Focus, Alex, Lyra shouted. Channel your energy into the crystal. Now. Alex forced himself to concentrate, his hands trembling as he raised the crystal toward the artifact. The moment the crystal's light met the artifact's energy, a shockwave rippled through the room, nearly knocking him off his feet. He gritted his teeth, pushing against the overwhelming force. The artifact's tendrils recoiled, then lashed out, slamming into the walls and floor. The house groaned under the strain, and cracks began to form in the stone. It's resisting, Alex shouted. I don't think it wants to be stabilized. Lyra's hands flew over the console, her golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. Keep going. It's testing you. If you stop now, it'll break free." Alex let out a roar, pouring every ounce of his strength into the crystal. The whispers in his mind turned into a deafening chorus, drowning out his own thoughts. Images flashed before his eyes, worlds consumed by fire, civilizations crumbling, and a dark, endless void. "It's showing me something," Alex gasped. "A vision of destruction. It's trying to break you," Lyra said, her voice sharp. "Don't let it in. You're stronger than it is." Sweat poured down Alex's face as he fought against the artifact's overwhelming presence. The crystal in his hands grew unbearably hot, and his arms ached from the effort. But slowly the tendrils began to retract, and the artifact's light dimmed. "Almost there," Lyra said, her voice tight with concentration. "Just a little longer." The artifact let out a final, piercing wail, and the light in the room exploded in a brilliant flash. Alex was thrown backward, the crystal slipping from his hands as he hit the floor. The whispers in his mind ceased, replaced by a deafening silence. When Alex opened his eyes, the artifact was still. Its light had faded, and the tendrils were gone. The vortex around it had disappeared, leaving only the faint hum of the energy field. Lyra knelt beside him, her expression a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "You did it," she said softly. "The artifact is stable." Alex sat up, his body aching. "Stable," he repeated, his voice hollow. "For how long?" Lyra looked away, her face clouded with uncertainty. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we bought ourselves time, enough to figure out what to do next." Alex let out a bitter laugh. "Time. Great. And what happens when it wakes up again?" Lyra's golden eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of hope. "Next time, we'll be ready," she said. "Together." Alex didn't know if he believed her, but for now, it was enough. The fight wasn't over, but they had won this battle. The final decision. The artifact's pulsing energy had stilled, and the oppressive whispers were gone, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the chaos. Alex sat on the cold stone floor, his body aching from the ordeal. Lyra stood by the now-closed door, her hands pressed against its surface, as if drawing strength from its icy touch. The glow of the chains had returned, their carvings now faint but stable. For the moment, the artifact was contained. But Alex knew better than to believe this was over. "It's stable now," Lyra said, her voice barely audible. Her shoulders sagged, exhaustion written in every line of her body. The reprogramming worked, at least partially. "Partially?" Alex asked, his voice hoarse. He pushed himself to his feet, swaying slightly before steadying himself against the wall. "What does that mean? Is it safe or not?" Lyra turned to face him, her golden eyes dimmer than before. "The artifact has been pacified for now. It no longer views you, or humanity, as a primary threat, but its programming is ancient, complex. Some parts of it may remain intact." Alex let out a bitter laugh. "So it's a ticking time bomb then?" "Great. It's not ideal," Lyra admitted, stepping away from the door. "But it's the best outcome we could hope for without destroying it, and risking everything." Alex's frustration boiled over. "Why not just destroy it? You keep talking about the risks, but what about the risk of leaving it here? What happens when it wakes up again?" Lyra's gaze softened. "You don't understand, Alex. Destroying it isn't just about the weapon. It's tied to everything. This house, this planet, and even me. If it goes, I go." Alex froze, her words sinking in like a knife. "What do you mean, you go?" Lyra took a deep breath, her hands trembling at her sides. "When my people created the artifact, they didn't just build it. They linked it to the energy of our world, and to me. As its creator, I became its guardian, its anchor. If the artifact is destroyed, I will cease to exist." Alex stared at her, his anger evaporating, replaced by a sinking feeling in his chest. "You've been here, Alone, all this time. Tied to this thing. Lyra nodded. It was my punishment. My penance for helping to create something so dangerous. My people thought it fitting that I should bear the burden of keeping it contained. And now? Alex asked, his voice quieter. What happens to you now that it's reprogrammed? Lyra hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. The link remains, she said softly. As long as the artifact exists, I'll remain here to guard it. It's my duty. Alex felt a surge of anger and helplessness. That's not fair, he said. You've already sacrificed so much. There has to be another way. There isn't, Lyra said firmly, her voice taking on a tone of finality. This is my burden to bear, Alex, not yours. He shook his head, his hands clenching into fists. No, I won't accept that. You've done enough. You deserve a chance to live, to be free. And what would you have me do? Lyra asked, her golden eyes locking onto his. Abandon my duty. Leave the artifact unguarded. There has to be a way to sever the link, Alex said, his mind racing. To destroy the artifact without destroying you. Lyra's expression softened, but there was sadness in her eyes. Even if there is, it would take time. Time we may not have. Then we find a way, Alex said firmly. Together. Lyra's eyes widened, and for a moment she looked vulnerable, unsure. You would stay. After everything you've seen, everything you've been through. Alex stepped closer, his voice steady. You're not the only one who believes in protecting humanity. If this is the price we have to pay to keep the galaxy safe, then so be it. But I'm not leaving you to face it alone. For a moment, Lyra said nothing. Then, to Alex's surprise, she smiled, a small, genuine smile that lit up her face. You're a stubborn fool, Alex, she said softly. But thank you. He returned her smile, though his resolve remained firm. So what's the next step? Lyra's expression grew serious. The artifact is stable for now, but we need to reinforce the seal. That means finding a way to channel more energy into the chains and uncovering the secrets of the artifact's core. If we can understand its true nature, we might find a way to destroy it safely. Sounds like a plan, Alex said, though he couldn't ignore the weight of what lay ahead. Lyra nodded. It won't be easy, but with you here, maybe there's hope. The room fell silent, but it was a silence filled with determination. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, no matter how daunting. The artifact's threat still loomed, but for the first time, Alex felt a glimmer of hope. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for a future worth protecting. And this time, they wouldn't be alone.